Hello and welcome into a special edition of the IdahoSports.com Prepcasts. No matter which of our regional prepcasts you listen to week in, week out, North Idaho, Treasure Valley, Magic Valley, or East Idaho, you're getting a little bonus content this week because we are on the verge of starting the 2023 high school volleyball season here in the state of Idaho. So welcome into our special volleyball season preview show. My name is Brandon Baney, but the real person you all came to hear talk because she knows the game inside and out is Lynnsie Togiai Ah-Fook. Lynnsie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me again. I really enjoy it, and we're excited. Volleyball season's always an exciting time for us.
Definitely. So you came on last year with some volleyball coverage. You will have a weekly column, Keeping Up with the Kill. I love the title. It's one of the best titles of anything we do at IdahoSports.com. So we're really excited and looking forward to that. But really quickly, just introduce yourself to our audience. You have quite the career as a player and now also in coaching.
Thank you. So basically, been playing volleyball my whole life. And then I played at Century for 4 years under Pauline there. We got our first state championship while I was there. And then I went to Montana State on scholarship for volleyball. And then I moved to Utah and got my master's degree. And then when I moved back, my husband and I both coach, and we coached at Highland, Pocatello, and now we coach at Rockland. I'm the director of Pocatello Elite, and so we also have been coaching club for 3 years now. So yeah, volleyball is and always has been a huge part of my life. Coaching is very different, but the competitiveness as a coach is still there for me. So.
Yes, definitely. And being in the club scene, you are really tapped into, which teams around the state are looking strong. You, of course, help coach at Rockland, 1D2 level, especially very well. As we get into our season preview here, we're going to start at the opposite level of where you coach. We're going to start all the way at the 5A level, where last year was the first year that Skyview was not there. Skyview moved down to 4A. It created this big opening, and we thought, okay, which team is going to step up and reclaim 5A dominance? It ended up being Madison. Madison took out a really surprising Timberline team in the championship. Timberline was the 6th seed, got all the way to the finals. So Madison is the team to beat in the 5A ranks. They've got a new coach this year, Miranda Mestis, the longtime great coach for Madison, retired in the off season, but a lot of good, talented players returning for Madison. I expect the Bobcat very strong.
Yeah, so I think Madison will be returning to that state championship. Although they got a new coach, several high schools got a new coach this year. So that's kind of a trending thing we're going to see this year is you see a lot of new head coaches. You'll see that, and I mean a lot at all levels. And so with her leaving, but with who's stepping in, with Whitney, I actually played against her. She played for Rigby while I was in high school. And her team was actually in the state championship my senior year with us. Anyways, and then she's a really good player. She went on to play at BYU, and yeah, she was dominant then and in college as well. So I think she'll do good for them. Even stepping in as a new coach. I think that Timberline was a surprise. They fought their way back around the bracket to find their way in the state championship. So, I think it's kind of a toss-up of who they might be against because I think Post Falls is returning some good players as well, and they fought well with Madison and Timberline prior to the state championship, so I think they'll be up there again. But yeah, I agree on the Madison part.
Yes, Whitney Howard is the new coach at Madison, and we'll try to highlight all of the coaching changes as we talk about each team, but you're right. There were a ton. So if we miss one, sorry. And also we're talking about players that are returning based upon they were on the team last year. Of course, players could transfer from one school to another, and we won't know that until we actually see them take the floor. So if we have a player or two wrong, just forgive us for that as well. Definitely. Yep. Okay. So let's talk about the rest of Madison's conference, where Highland, I think, looks really good. Rigby and Thunder Ridge have really good individual anchors to their team, but Highland returns 4 all-conference players from a year ago: Ashlyn Smith, Kaylin Hay, Jenna Riley, and Claire Fellows, and they're all seniors. What do you think about the Rams?
So they actually, in addition to what you just mentioned, they have 7 seniors total this year on the team. So they got a lot of seniors. So, I mean, with that comes, experience. And I think that helps a lot when you get, later on in districts or state championships, things like that. So I think they have a good advantage there. Obviously, their district is really hard. So it'll be interesting to see them face Madison. So that'll be one that I want to see. I think that Ashlyn and Kay have done a good job for them for a long time. The others we haven't quite seen a lot. They kind of came into the scene last year, but I think that those 4, along with the other 3 seniors, will help that team a lot and possibly face Madison the way they want to. So
yes, I think it's going to be a season of which team can improve the most and be playing at their absolute best when districts rolls around. Highland went 10-6 last year, 3-3 in the conference, which was incredibly difficult, as we said. Thunder Ridge was actually the other team that got to state last year, and Thunder Ridge has a returning all-conference hitter in Bailey Coons. Rigby struggled a little bit last year, but they've got one of the tallest players in the conference, Cambry Barber, and I watched her play basketball, and she's phenomenal. So,
yes,
this conference overall, I think, is going to be really difficult, right?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, with the names you just mentioned alone, but volleyball is a true team sport. You need all 6 of those players to really step on together and become one, because you always want those 3 touches within those 6 players. So although some teams might have 1 or 2 good players, it'll come down to who has the better 6.
Definitely. Okay, let's swing over to District 3, the big Southern Idaho Conference. There are 13 teams in this league. Timberline was the last team standing last year as the 6th seed at state. Is Timberline the team to beat, or do you have your eye on somebody else? Eagle, of course, was very good in the regular season last year also.
Yeah, that one's hard. I don't know if it's because they have so many teams, or there's a lot of talent like mixed in those 13 teams. So a lot of those girls we did see in club. They played for Crush and other clubs up in that Boise area. And so I think, those girls, when they get together to play for club, it's different. They take them all from all of those schools. But then when they go to their high school, then like we talked about, you have 1 or 2 from their club teams, and then they face each other, but it's just not the same. It becomes harder because you're not used to playing with some players, especially, where you have that mix of, upcoming freshmen who are really good, but you have those, dominant seniors who are taking on those leadership roles. I think that mix of it will come into play. Where Timberline, I know that they have a couple good players that you mentioned, like anchors for their team, but I guess we'll see. I know that Eagle is actually returning more. So,
yeah, and I think that's where I lean is Eagle with Delaney Bubb, Liv Manning were both all-state players a year ago. Avery Hassman and Mahia House are both back as well for the Mustangs. Eagle went to state last year as the 5 seed. They had to play Madison in the second round, lost, and then they lost to Timberline 3-2 in just a grueling 5-set thriller, and their state tournament was done. They were 1-2 and out. And so Timberline has returned Allie Cox and Ava Brickner as well. Also getting to state last year from District 3, we saw Owyhee and Boise. And I think Owyhee especially, they've been kind of a young team, obviously only their 3rd year of being a high school, but they've got a trio of juniors, Mikhail Roy, who's got some good height, Riley Beck, and Shani McWilliams, who all earned all conference honors as sophomores last year. So I think Owyhee could take a big step forward too.
That's true. You got those younger ones in the mix, and now, they're only getting more experience, and where they got, those accolades last year, we'll see what they can do this year. I I forgot about Owyhee, actually. I know that they're in there, but it's probably just because they're younger. They haven't been around the scene, the high school included, that long yet. So,
and I think that's the way they'd prefer to keep it. Yeah, everybody forget about us. Don't pay attention to what we're doing over here, and then we'll come
true.
get you when we need to.
Exactly.
Yep. I would say two other teams to keep an eye on from the SIC District 3 Centennial. Always seems to have a good program. Eliana Tia and Dalen Harris are both back. And then Rocky Mountain as well. Rocky Mountain brings back some really talented seniors and like Anna DeBell and Aubrey Evans. And so those are two more teams that I would keep an eye on. I think when we talk about the best player in the 5A classification, though, I think it's actually up north in Post Falls, Kylie Monday, who has committed to the University of San Diego. That's a Division I program. She is back for a Post Falls team that took third last year. I think the sky's the limit for both Monday and the Trojans this year.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that Post Falls is definitely one to look out for, like later on in the season. I would like to see where they're at. I think they're a contender for that 5A title, actually, I would say. And I do agree with you that she brings a lot of leadership to that team, and she's, well-rounded, knows her court sense. She's a very good player among really good players in that 5A division.
It's so exciting to see all of these Idaho volleyball athletes, get these high-level D1 offers. It must be so exciting for you as a coach and a fan of the sport too.
Oh yeah. We'd love to see it. I mean, we have a lot recently from all levels, going, anywhere from San Diego to Idaho State, Montana, pretty much all over. But that's great. The more exposure, Idaho volleyball can get, that's great.
Yeah, there seems to be a Skyview to BYU pipeline. We'll talk about Skyview, of course.
That one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, we'll talk about Skyview here in just a second. To wrap up north, Lake City was the other team that got to state last year. They lost a lot to graduation. We'll see who's coming up through the ranks, but that second spot I think is totally up for grabs. Coeur d'Alene has Paisley Goings coming back. Lewiston has Addie McArcher, a really good junior, coming back. It'll be interesting to see those other three teams duke it out, but Post Falls clearly, I think, the favorite there at the 5A level. 4A, what do we need to talk about? It's Skyview. It's always Skyview. What makes them so good, Lynnsie, every year?
So, I mean, it's just the girls that you have on that team, they play year-round volleyball. And when I say year-round, they're playing for their club up there at Crush, and most of them are playing together, or you have like 3 or 4 players playing on the same team, and that really carries over to that high school team. And they can play at high levels. They go to national tournaments. They went to that ESPN tournament last year as a high school, which is a big deal. And then you just have players who have so much experience playing at that faster pace, and then when they carry it over into high school, it's actually not quite as fast as club, but so that's why they're just very dominant. And then a lot of those girls are going to play college at an even faster pace, so they want to get prepared for that.
Yes. Alex Acevedo was the not only the Southern Idaho Conference Player of the Year, but I believe she was the Gatorade Player of the Year last year. She has moved on to Oregon, playing for the Ducks. That gives you an idea of the kind of the talent level we're talking about here at Skyview. Yes. Bellamy Buse is back. She played as a freshman. She broke into the starting lineup as a freshman at Skyview, which is incredibly difficult to do. Alex Bowers, Melissa Iyer, Brinley Perrine. There's so many great athletes for Skyview. I guess the question is, Lynnsie, who is the team that will be facing Skyview for the 4A championship? That's where the intrigue is.
I agree, because I know that Skyview, I would bet money that Skyview is going to be there. I think that Canyon Ridge actually has a good shot. And then I think that Pocatello actually has a good shot to be up there in that division.
Okay.
They obviously haven't been to state for a very long time, but this year is different for them.
Yeah, we've seen sort of a renaissance at Pocatello High School. Their girls basketball team got to state for the first time in a long time last year. We obviously know their track and field team is always competing and in the mix at state as well. So let's take a look at the first team that you mentioned, Canyon Ridge. They were exceptional last year. They went 16-3. But then they bit the dust at state. They went 2-out. They lost to Century, the 7 seed, your alma mater, right away. And then they lost to Columbia in a loser out game as well. We had last year, this was crazy. The 7 seed Century and the 6 seed Moscow both got wins in the first round. So you had a 7 and a 6 on that winner's side of the bracket. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I remember that game between Century and Canyon Ridge. They went 5 sets, and that was a really tough battle there. They both, I would say, played really well, but Century probably played one of the best games they'd played yet in that game. Canyon Ridge, though, fortunately for them, they only graduated 1. And so returning mostly everybody, and we saw a lot of those girls play year-round as well. I think they're going to be good this year. I think they have a good chance of making it to that championship as well.
Yeah, highlighting the returnees are a pair of all-state players, outside hitters, Maddie Bland and Abby McLean, both seniors, both part of this really good group of upperclassmen that Canyon Ridge has. Twin Falls has been kind of the other power in that district, the Great Basin Conference District 4. Twin Falls went 14-6 last year, also got to state, also got to the semifinals or the second round where they lost to Skyview, and then they were bounced after that. But this is a Twin Falls team that also returns quite a bit. Jacqueline Hawkins is their head coach. I think she does a great job with this program. What do you think about the crosstown rival for Canyon Ridge, the Twin Falls Bruins?
That's a good rivalry. I think that Canyon Ridge just kind of flew under the radar for a bit because they are newer-ish in comparison to Twin Falls. But I think that Canyon Ridge will win it again. Last year was their first district title, which was huge for them. But I think, as long as they keep working, I think they can earn it again this year just because of, who you mentioned. Is it McLean? Is that her last name?
Yeah, McLean. Yep.
Yeah. Have you seen her play? She is.
I haven't had the chance to watch Canyon Ridge. No.
So she saw a little bit in club as well. She is a very tall, dominant outside. So she's definitely a scorer for them. And where, in balance in that 6 rotations, she has an opposite who can also score. That's gonna be huge for them. I think definitely be in their conference championship, and they can make it far at state as well.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see the city of Twin Falls have such great volleyball overall. I'd say those two are definitely the top 2. Last year, Wood River was very good, 13-5. They were a very senior-heavy team. We'll see what they can replace. And then all of the other programs, I think, have the potential to take that next step. But to me, it is the two teams in Twin Falls that are the favorites in District 4. So let's go to District 5 in the Southeast Idaho Conference. Century has long been kind of the premier power. Back when you were playing, of course, and Pauline Theros was coaching and winning multiple state championships. And even to last year where maybe at the statewide level, Century wasn't as strong, but they still went 4-0 in conference play, and they went 12-9 overall. But you think Pocatello was primed for the big breakthrough?
I believe so, yes. They have many seniors this year as well, and they've kind of always been in the battle with Century, but couldn't quite beat those seniors that they had last year. But this year, they've faced in some summer tournaments, and Pokey's come out ahead, and I feel like looking at the 2 teams that Pokey should win it this year. And then you can't forget about Preston. They're in their conference as well. But I feel like even looking at just all 3 of those teams, I feel that the one to win is Pocatello this year. They have Addie Evans, who is actually going to go on for college as well. She's looking into Rocky Mountain in Montana and then Westminster in Utah. And then they have Naomi Shipley, who is a setter. So you have some people who like aren't on that list who you wouldn't know about, and I'm bringing them up, but it's a good thing, I hope, but not for other coaches to like scout them out, but just so that they get some recognition, because they are seniors this year and they've worked their way to this point.
Yeah, that's one of the hard things about this conference is I don't believe they do an all-conference team when the season's over, since there's only 3 schools. And so, yeah, it can be hard sometimes to keep track of the postseason accolades. But yeah, Pocatello is a team that I like their balance, like you said, of the passing with the great setter, and then setting up the attack on the outside too. I think it's good balance. The interesting thing about this conference is 2 of the 3 schools have new head coaches, including at Pocatello, where Paige Latham is the new coach, and at Century, Meg Fleischman is the new coach there for the Diamondbacks as well.
Yeah, I think those are, pretty interesting changes. Like I said, there's so many new head coaches this year coming into it, but where Paige has coached, Highlands JV for the past, I don't know how many years she's been on the coaching scene. Meg is a little bit more of a surprising one, just because she's always been a teacher out there at Century. Like, she was my teacher. So I don't know. It'll just be interesting. I know that she, played volleyball and basketball when she was growing up, but I just haven't seen her like on the volleyball scene. So I don't know.
Well, and she also is going to be coaching the girls basketball team at Century this year as well. So she's going all in. She went from not coaching at all to I'm going to be the head coach for 2 teams.
Right. Yeah. I think she'll do a good job though. Yeah. She's very driven. She wants the girls and the school to succeed. She's been at Century for a long time, both her and her husband. So I know she wants to do well for the school.
Yes, the Fleischman name is synonymous with Century High School. I think they were there when it first opened in the late 90s, early 2000s. They're OG. Yeah. For sure. Okay, let's swing back to Skyview's district, District 3, the Southern Idaho Conference. We know Skyview is the team. The second team to get to state last year from this district was Columbia, and the Wildcats came in as the 3 seed and actually had a top 3 finish. They got all the way to the championship match where they lost to Skyview 3-1. So Columbia is a team that had a lot of momentum last year. And when you look at who's coming back, they did lose, a couple of talented players to graduation, but they bring back Berlin Overturf, who's a great senior. Do you think Columbia is still the second team to beat, or is it somebody else in that conference?
I don't know. Columbia, that one's hard for me. I guess I need to look at them a little bit more. Columbia kind of surprised me, I guess, at the state tournament, coming, back around and getting to that with Skyview and even beating them a set, because Skyview is pretty dominant and they don't drop a set most of the time. So I just thought it was good for them. And I did see that they did lose some key seniors from their team last year, but that doesn't mean that they don't have those youngers coming up to fill those spots. So I guess it'll be interesting to see. That I will be looking into.
Yes, they lost twin sisters Miley and Maggie Mills. They lost Cora Young, their big 6'1" blocker in the middle. So, but also, a lot of sophomores on the varsity team last year as well. And I think when Columbia beat Skyview at state in that set, I believe that was the first set Skyview had dropped to an Idaho opponent all year, was against Columbia at state, which is just mind-boggling to think about.
They drop a set hardly ever until they went to that national tournament. So that's good for them. And where they were young too, I think they have a good chance then. They had, quite a few sophomores, like you mentioned, being juniors now. They can fill those spots that they lost.
Yep. And then every other team in the conference has like at least one returning all-conference player that they can kind of hang their hat on. Bishop Kelly has Judith Burke. Caldwell has Tamar Callender. Ridgeview's got Holland Miller and McKenna Durant. Valley View's got Adelina Alfonso. So the question is, who has the depth to go along with that returning all-league talent?
Exactly. And I guess we'll see, because well, it's preseason. So here we go. I guess we'll see which teams are coming prepared and which teams are going to work hard.
Yeah, we'll see how it all shakes out as the season gets going. The next place I wanted to go was District 6, the High Country Conference, because a team that is really good year in, year out, but kind of gets lost amongst all the noise of, Canyon Ridge and Skyview, Bonneville, just so good year in, year out, representing East Idaho on the statewide level. What makes Bonneville such a good program, Lynnsie?
They've had the same coach since I was in high school. Chantel McCurdy's still there. She does a great job of really fine-tuning players and teaching them, ball control and discipline. And those are super important things in volleyball. And I think, just with her experience alone, she's helped those players develop. Even from a young age, she always holds these kids camps. Even right now, I think she's holding those young kid camps to start developing those players into volleyball players. And right now, I can think of their setter and their outside, I believe, that are returning. Their setter, Kaylee Kofi, that's going to Utah State. And she's played for her for the last 3 years. This will be her fourth. I think she's a great leader for them. And I think that with the others around her, they're just very disciplined in volleyball terms and consistent. And that's why I think Bonneville, when you think of Bonneville, you think of consistent. When I was in high school, they were in the state championship against us, both my sophomore and junior year. So I always think of them as consistent volleyball. So.
Yes. You mentioned Kaylee Kofi, the great setter. She was the High Country Conference Player of the Year last year. Ava Arfman, the outside hitter. I feel like they've both been there for like 10 years because they've both been playing since they were freshmen. But here they are. They're finally seniors. Aspen Anderson, also very good for Bonneville also.
Yes. I think they'll have a good chance this year. They didn't make it last year, right? They lost to Blackfoot?
Yeah, so last year Bonneville made it to state along with Blackfoot, but I believe Blackfoot got them at districts. And for Blackfoot, that was huge because Blackfoot hasn't really been a player on the volleyball stage lately. So that was huge for them.
No, that was the first time they'd gone to state in a long time. I don't know exactly of the years, but yes, they always have to fight. Because that district is tough for them as well. Because, like you said, Bonneville has just always been dominant there. And then who else is in their district?
So Blackfoot is the other team that went to state last year. They lost a lot to graduation. I think Idaho Falls actually is a team that could take a step forward. They had 3 sophomores earn all conference honors last year. Avery Look, Emma Vollmer, Grace Fugger. They're now juniors. So, I think it could be Idaho Falls. You've also got Hillcrest, that's usually in the mix. Aiden Madashaw, senior center, is going to kind of lead them. And then Shelley and Skyline are up there as well.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Tough competition. And lots of new coaches in there, too. Blackfoot got a new coach and Skyline, too.
Yes. And Skyline's got, Skyline could be sneaky also. They've got a lot of height. Amy Basic can jump out of the gym. She's a great high jumper in track also. And you're right. Lots of new coaches. Chelsea RV is the new coach at Blackfoot. Kikoa Pukahi. I'm gonna need some time to. I'm sorry, Kikoa, if I said your name wrong. New coach at Skyline as well. And then just to wrap up, other new coaches at the 4A level. Tracy Bullock is now at Ridgeview. Amber Fouts is at Valley View. And Piper Wallen is the new coach at Sandpoint, which takes us up north to our final division in the 4A ranks. It's always tough for these teams to get traction. They have to play the 5A schools up in North Idaho a lot, so their max preps ranking gets dinged a little bit. Lakeland has kind of been the team to beat historically. They were the team to beat last year at districts. They got upset by Moscow. Moscow then got to state and upset a few teams along the way. This is always a tough league to predict because there's only 3 teams and because the strength of schedule is so much higher.
That's just true. Like you said, I think it's hard to predict what's going to happen in that conference. They're pretty even, and then like you said, they just like upset each other all the time, kind of. they as far as I see it, they're pretty even up there. The competition they play is good, so when it comes down to it, it's just who can handle that pressure and who has more experience when it comes to the district title of that one. I know that Sandpoint was always at state when we were in high school. They were always up there. But it looks like things have kind of changed from Lakeland and Moscow too. So, like I said, that one's close. That was a close race.
Yes, one athlete on each team to watch: Zia Munier for Lakeland, Jessa Skinner from Moscow, Vivian Platt from Sandpoint. All athletes to keep an eye on up north. All right, let's switch to our Class 3A preview, where the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's kind of the same group of teams that we've seen the last couple of years, with the lone exception of Sugar Salem was not at state last year. And I think that surprised a lot of people because the Diggers have been such a dominant force, but they lost in the state play-in game to get there.
Yeah, that surprised me. They've been there for as long as I can remember, think about it. I mean, when we played them, they gave us a good match when I was back in high school. And over the years, when I've watched them play with that same coach as well, I always see her. They play consistent volleyball again. That's one of the ones I think of is them and Bonneville. And I think that surprised a lot of people. But, with Snake River and Kimberly and Fruitland, those guys are always in the mix.
Yes, let's start with the defending champs from Kimberly. They had just height out the wazoo last year. They had so much height, right?
Yeah. And that truly helped them dominate at the net. I mean, other teams just weren't able to score on them. But I mean, they played well-rounded volleyball too. They had, good passing, good setting going on. They played a well-rounded game. And I think if you watch them play, they just kept their cool. They were a very calm team. They didn't let, mistakes upset them like other teams do. And that comes from experience. So they look good to me. Did they graduate a lot?
So they lost a couple of their big hitters, but they bring back some pretty good talent as well. Melissa Edwards, the head coach there at Kimberly, does a great job. They did lose, as I said, some of their bigger hitters. They lost the player of the year in Kelsey Stanger, and she was a multi-sport athlete, really phenomenal. But they bring back some height still in Mallory Kelsey, who started in the middle last year as a sophomore, and that's really where their hopes start this year. They also have Kadrian Klinger, their setter back, and Macy Dilly, their opposite hitter. Kimberly went undefeated last year. I don't think they'll go undefeated again this year, but to me, they're still a contender to repeat as 3A champs.
Yes, I agree. I agree with both of those points. I think that they'll have more challenges this year, especially filling that big hole from the Stinger. But I think that they can do it. I think that throughout the season, you'll see them, fine tune some things, and they'll find their way back to the state championship. I think they'll be there. Because they have, 3 key pieces returning, but then I know that they had some younger ones who are ready to fill. So I guess we'll see. I think they'll be there.
Yes. The other team to join Kimberly at state last year from District 4, the Sawtooth Central Idaho Conference, SCIC, was Buell. And Buell was an interesting team. They went 1-5 in league play last year, but they were like 11-13 overall. So you're like, man, they just ran into some bad luck, it seems like, in the regular season. Well, Buell got hot at districts, got the second spot to state. They returned junior setter Aspen Eckert. That's kind of what they'll build around there. They did lose some good athletes like Megan Montgomery and such. I think Filer historically has been a pretty good program in the past. And I really think Gooding could take a big step forward this year. Gooding was 8-8 last year, 3-3 in conference, straight 500, pretty steady Eddie. I think Gooding could take a big step.
Yeah, I think that one's another close one. I think those teams play each other enough to kind of know how each other plays. So when it comes to districts, you can be like, okay, this is what we need to do to win here, even though, their record might not quite reflect how they actually play. They get used to playing with each other so much, it's hard to beat a team twice in a row. So
yeah, this district always seems to have some really crazy results at
yeah.
district tournament time for sure. Gooding's got 3 seniors that are coming back that picked up all conference honors last year. Izzy Stockham on the outside, Audrey Schilder in the middle, and Dominique Salaya in the middle setting as well. I wanted to ask you a volleyball question about, so Izzy Stockham is a senior for Gooding. She's also like a really good pole vaulter in track and field. She's like one of the best in the state. What kind of skills translate from the pole vault to the volleyball court? Do you know of any?
I mean, obviously you got to have those power moves. You got to be able to be explosive. Seems like you got to have the plyometrics and like explosive moves. So did you say, is she a middle?
No, she's an outside.
She's an outside? Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, it's actually, they're all around. They, not only hit and block, but they also have usually, play more defense and serve receive and things like that. So I think just like the explosiveness, being able to move in one direction quickly to another, things like that carry over from pole vaulting to volleyball.
Yeah. Okay, good. I knew you would be the one to be able to tell me, because I've always been curious how skills translate from one sport to another. And I saw that one. I was like, that's an interesting one. So yeah.
That's cool though for her.
Yeah, it's great. Her sister is actually pole vaulting at Idaho State University right now, her older sister. So yeah,
cool.
Runs in the family. Okay, let's talk about Fruitland. They were the team that got to the championship last year against Kimberly. Fell 3-2 in that undefeated semifinal Saturday morning. Nearly did it. And then they got back to play Kimberly, but I think they were out of gas by that point. And got swept 3-0 in the championship. But man, Fruitland was a team last year that was young. The player of the year, not just in the Snake River Valley Conference, District 3, but for the entire state, 3A player of the year was Brooke Hardy at Fruitland as a freshman.
As a freshman, right. Okay. Yeah, I remember that. Fruitland, though, like as a whole program, they've always been up there in the 3A division. They make it to the state championship quite often. Not only in volleyball, but basketball too. They just have really good athletes out there. But I think what that says about them being so young, that this year and even next year, you're going to see them a lot more in that state tournament.
Yeah. Fruitland got to state along with Weiser last year, and Weiser actually played Fruitland in the 3rd place match and lost 3-0. Weiser brings back 3 really good seniors: Bailey Coleman, Abby Wilkins, and Danny Lockett. So Weiser could be right there again. Homedale always seems to be really tough from that district. They've got, some athletes like Zane Hall and Olivia Asumendi. McCall Donnelly's got a great individual in Gabby Green. Parma always seems to be really strong in volleyball. Who's besides Fruitland that you think is going to be at state this year from District 3?
Oh, that's tough. I think is going to be there, and then I think Weiser is going to do it again. But I guess we'll see, because that one's closer for who will be going, I think, with Fruitland. For that, I'm not sure. I do think Weiser, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, last year Fruitland was 18-2, Weiser 14-7, McCall Donnelly 15-7. So 3 teams right at the top that were all really talented a year ago, really close too. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about another team that's traditionally strong, a team that took 4th at state last year, Snake River from District 5, the Southeast Idaho Conference. The Panthers went 14-6 last year. American Falls was 2nd. Marsh Valley was 3rd. But really, I mean, it was Snake River's conference start to finish. And I think it's going to be the same way again this year. They bring back 4 all-conference players: Maddie Watt, the libero; Zoe Watt, the setter; Reese Baldwin on the outside, and Taylor Carlson in the middle. That is a fearsome foursome, and they've got reinforcements coming.
Yeah, so I actually had the opportunity to see them play in a summer tournament we just had a couple weeks ago, and they moved Taylor Carlson to the outside, which was actually a really good move. She can score at will, but then, and in balance, to her opposite can also score like that. So with those two dominating at the net, they have pretty controlled passes and setting going on. They did well. They won that tournament. So, I mean, they're one to watch out for sure. I think even at the state tournament when it comes time. But yeah, I think they're going to be the ones who take that district.
Yeah, and I believe Snake River has either it's a new head coach this year or second-year coach. Sydney Anderson is coaching at Snake River.
Well, she's new, but she was an assistant last year. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think she'll do well. She's been around it for a while anyways, at least, volleyball as the assistant, JV coach, things like that. So she knows the girls, the program. And I think that always helps, not just stepping in completely blind. But yeah, we got to see them play and they looked good. They looked well-rounded. They're coming in senior heavy this season. So I know that those seniors are hungry to be in that state championship this year.
Yeah. American Falls, very senior heavy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of their 9 varsity players were seniors last year. Yeah. Lynnsie, how tough is that?
So we've also seen them and they look very young. So, I mean, potential's there, they just don't quite have the experience yet. But that coach does a really good job too. I know that she's, helping them, skill wise, fine tune the technical stuff. They're just young. You could just tell, by their court sense that they were just doing things like, oh no, that was a freshman move. You shouldn't have done that, but happens.
Yep. It'll be some on the job training for American Falls this year for sure. Jordan Kern, senior, only returning varsity player from a year ago. But like you said, very good coach in Jamie Adair. She does such a good job. Yeah. So, yeah. Marsh Valley, we'll keep an eye on as well. Tierney Miller, senior outside hitter, is going to lead the Eagles there. Let's go to District 6, the Mountain Rivers Conference, where it wasn't Sugar Salem at state last year. It was South Fremont. And I'm telling you, I think South Fremont is going to get back there. They've got so many good athletes.
They do. I agree with you there. I think that South Fremont has kind of gotten overlooked in the past just because they're in the same conference as Sugar Salem, but they've actually always had a really good program. They've been steady, again, very consistent, disciplined volleyball, but it's just Sugar has come out on top more times than not. But I agree with you. I think that South Fremont, has been on their way up there. They're still getting to their peak. So
yeah, there's been a lot of years where South Fremont is the 8 best teams at state, but because they're in the same conference as Sugar, they don't get a chance to get there. And so it's nice to see them having a little time in the spotlight to themselves. They bring back Shantae Cheminant, senior outside hitter. They also have Carly Bradshaw. And then they've got a trio of juniors, setter Allie Hackworth, and then Tori Hathaway and Kensley Neville, who both play in the middle, that are all returning for South Fremont. Sugar Salem was very young last year. A couple of freshmen actually picked up all conference honors, Tasha Larson and Haley Phillips. They're now sophomores. Longtime coach for Sugar Salem, turned the reins over to, I believe it's her second year now coaching the Diggers, Savannah Vargason. And so it's kind of a new leader, new voice. So Sugar is still young, but man, with the history that program has, I wouldn't count them out either.
Yeah, I think that's going to be close, great match between those two. I guess we'll see who gets to get it this year. Because like you said, Sugar was super young last year, but with who's returning for South Fremont, I think they'll get it, but
yep, and Teton also it's a really good 3-team conference here where they're all very equal. Teton's got a couple of seniors, Abby Tibbetts and Cameron Flanagan and McKinley Coons. Caitlin Zogg's a good player, Elisa Kaufman. So really, it's going to be fun to watch these three teams duke it out all year long.
That's true. And they'll face each other a lot. So I guess we'll get ready and we'll see.
Yes, especially at districts, they'll play each other a lot. They'll be tired of it for sure. Our final conference in 3A is way up north, District 1, the Intermountain League, where you've got Timberlake, you've got Bonners Ferry. Timberlake is such a strong program. There's really nowhere to hide. Bonners Ferry really struggled last year. The difference between Timberlake and Bonners Ferry was pretty significant. I think Timberlake is still the favorite there. They've got Lindley Howard returning. She was the MVP of the league last year. Macy Sandbank is back. She's a junior. You know, Bonners Ferry has some good overall athletes. Aisha Abubakari is one of my favorites. She throws the shot put in track as well and is phenomenal at that. But Timberlake just has the depth and the history on their side.
Yeah, I think that one's not as close of a race. Like you said, you know, both teams have good athletes, but as far as, you know, the volleyball side of things, I think Timberlake has it there. They just have more returning, and then they also they just seem to play the game a little bit better. I don't know if Bonners Ferry, you know, has a different focus, but yeah, they struggle.
Yeah, last year, I got that totally mixed up. I had that reversed in my head. Bonners Ferry was the team that was really good last year and won the conference, and Timberlake was the team that struggled a little bit. I apologize. I had a brain cramp there.
I just remember one of them had like a really terrible record, and one of them had a really great record. So was it opposite?
Yeah, so it was the reverse of that. So Timberlake really struggled last year, but they had to play Bonners Ferry, Sandpoint. They had to play Kellogg, which is always really good. Clark Fork, who we'll talk about, Lakeland, Lake City. So they really did run into the schedule a little bit. And Bonners Ferry has really good athletes, as we talked about. Aisha Abubakari, Helen Ray is back as well. So I don't know. Two-team race is always tricky to predict, but whoever gets to state, they will do so. It's an advantage for the teams from the north because nobody ever sees them, right? Even in the summer circuit, right? I feel like the North Idaho teams go over to Washington and stuff, right?
Yeah, we don't see those north teams until state. So it is an advantage for sure. And where there's only two teams, that's tough. There's not much like to go off of even then.
Right. For sure. Yes, Bonners Ferry got to state last year as the 6th seed overall, and they went 2-out, losing to Weiser and Buell there. So Bonners Ferry fans, I apologize. I got that mixed up in my head. But the same platitudes apply where Timberlake has to get some on-the-job training and nowhere to hide in a conference with Bonners Ferry, and that's it. So let's move to the 2A level where your defending champions. This to me was the toughest classification last year. When we were talking about the state bracket, I looked at it and I said, honestly, like 6 or 7 of these teams, it wouldn't shock me if they're playing like on Saturday, you know, for a top 3 spot. There were so many good teams. Melba, the 1 seed, ended up winning the championship. Melba did lose some talented players to graduation, but as it always seems to be, they also have some really good players coming back in the pipeline. Ella Stosic is back as a senior. Tariah Carter is a junior, and Ellie Johnson is a sophomore. So you're like, why is Melba so good every year? Well, there are 3 returning all-conference players, or a senior, a junior, and a sophomore. They've got 1 at each level.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, watching Melba last year, they did well. Again, they seemed to, you know, all flow together, all 6 of them on the court. But I do know that they did lose one of their outsides who was pretty dominant last year. So it'll be interesting to see who's filling that spot.
Yeah, Melba definitely lost some talented athletes that contributed to multiple sports. They lost Maya Young, who was an outside hitter. They lost Kendall Clark, the 5'11 hitter. They lost Hallie Arnold in the middle. She was 5'11. So Melba had a lot of height last year. May not have as much this year, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think, again, the 2A was hard, just because they all kind of played each other like well, but it came down to, again, just who had more experience, and then they were able to not let their mistakes get to them. In the end, Melba played a very, collected game, and they were able to just be dominant and play their game throughout without playing how others play.
Right. At the 2A level last year, Lynnsie, there were 12 teams that finished with winning overall records. Yeah. And of course, there's only 8 spots to state. So you had teams that were at home that were like, yeah, we could have competed for this thing.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's hard. It's hard with the districts and the conferences, the way that it's set up. But yeah, that one I think was closer than any other, as far as like, well, this team could have been there, this team could have been there, because it wasn't so clear cut like 5 and 4A.
Yes. Not much drama at the higher levels. Lots of drama at the 2A. Also in Melba's conference, District 3, the Western Idaho Conference, Coal Valley Christian got to state last year. They bring back 4 seniors who got all conference honors. Hadley Fraz, who's 6'1", 6'2", great player in the middle. Carly Clark, Sam Simonson, Addison Herbeck are all back. Nampa Christian was one of those teams that had a winning record. They were 13-8, but they missed out on state. They bring back 2 seniors, and Alyssa Gregory and Sophie Mylander, and 2 juniors, Alexis Dodit and Kaylee Reeves, who got all conference honors as well. So really, that's kind of the top 3 to me: Melba, Coal Valley, Nampa Christian, and I think any combination of those 3 could get to state.
That's true. Oh, that's tough. That's a tough one. I think Melba will be there for sure. But I don't know about the rest. They were all that had winning records, and they were just close. And when you play each other so much, oh man, you can see what you need to do to beat just that specific team.
Yep, flip a coin for sure. A couple new coaches in the league this year. New Plymouth has a new coach. Stephanie Bergen takes over at New Plymouth. Bree Sheldon is also the new coach at North Star Charter, so we'll keep an eye on that as well. The team that got to the championship against Melba last year was actually the 4 seed overall.
Yeah.
And it was a team from East Idaho, but it wasn't Malad. That was the team we kind of thought, they had beaten Westside so many times in the regular season and at districts. Westside got a higher seed than them. Malad had to play Westside in the first round at state. Malad beat Westside, but then when they met up on the back end of the bracket in the 4th place match, Westside got revenge. I mean, Malad and Westside just went back and forth all year last year. Spoiler alert, we're in for a similar story this year. It's going to be those 2 fighting to compete, but Westside got all the way to the championship last year and fell to Melba.
Yeah, and I think both of those teams looked good when I got to see parts of their game last year. But oh man, that one's like a true definition of a rivalry right there. They play each other so much, and even at the state tournament, they got to play each other again. The emotions were high. They both know how each other plays. Just came to who truly had a better all-around game that match, and they were battling. I remember that one, and I even remember in their district championship too. That one's hard, and I don't know which one's going to come out on top.
Yeah, Malad was 14-6 last year. Westside was 20-4. Sarah Maryscal Weinert returns in the middle for Westside. Malad brings back a couple of good hitters in Hallie Horsley and Wrigley Peterson. Those 2 definitely the teams to watch. Bear Lake kind of sneaky as well. Bear Lake was 10-6 last year, and they have a new head coach this year, Stephanie Birch. So we will see how Bear Lake fares in District 5 also. Taking 3rd place at state last year was Ryrie, the number 2 seed overall. They were the champions of the Nuclear Conference up in District 6, and they were another team. This is another league that was really tough with Firth and North Fremont, and Salmon actually took 2nd place last year. This one's a kind of a free-for-all. Ryrie lost a lot of talent to graduation. So to me, this might be the most wide open conference we see in Class 2A this year.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that like Ryrie, though, they've like kept their their players coming. They've developed them well from a young age. I know that because they play club as well, and so they've always had younger teams in the mix with their younger players coming up. They did lose a lot, but I feel like they have what they need to continue. But I think Salmon was a surprise for me last year. I don't know. I guess besides Ryrie, I didn't really know how the other ones would fare out, but I guess we'll see this year.
Yeah, Ryrie does bring back 2 players that picked up all conference honors. Viola Hayes on the outside, Riley Sickinger in the middle. So they're both back for Ryrie. But then you look at who's back in terms of all conference performers. Firth brings back 5, including 4 seniors, Daytona Folkman, Macy Meacham, Emery Guthrie, and Piper Clayson. They also bring back Rachel Jacobson, junior setter. North Fremont brings back 6 all-conference players from last year. 3 seniors, Allie Marsden, Emery Lenz, Alyssa Hill, 2 juniors, Josie Richardson and Grace Heiner, and then a sophomore, Taylor Sessions. So Firth was 10-9 last year. North Fremont was 8-9 with all that talent coming back. I expect both of those teams to take a big step forward.
That's true. That is a lot. I didn't realize they had that many conference players returning. Yeah, so I guess we'll see how it goes because Ryrie doesn't have much returning, but like I said, they have good younger players that I know of that aren't quite on that list yet. So I guess we'll see. Didn't Ryrie get a new coach as well?
Let me look. Yes, they did. Hillary Scott, new coach at Ryrie.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, there's so many. I've got a list here of all the new coaches. I got to double check. Speaking of new coaches, up there in District 6, West Jefferson also has a new coach. Raquel Torgerson had been the coach for a really long time, but she is now the athletic director. So she can't coach volleyball anymore. So congratulations to Coach Torgerson.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Lori Edens will be the new coach at West J this year. And yeah, I agree. Salmon, I think, could be sneaky. They were 10-5 last year. They bring back 3 seniors who picked up all conference honors, a pair of outside hitters and Sydney Pilkerton and Cadence Kaufman, and then senior setter Leanna Severe. I think Sydney Pilkerton from Salmon could really compete for the conference player of the year award, just on an individual level from Salmon, which would be really cool to see also.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of talent at all of these levels that, you know, at some points people don't even know of yet, but they'll get to see it this year.
Yep, for sure. So despite us just talking up how deep and talented District 6 is, only one team got the state from District 6 last year. That was Ryrie. Firth had a chance, but had to play Malad in a play-in game. And, of course, you know, good luck. Malad's so good. So, yeah, we'll see how District 6 shakes out this year. Let's go up north to District 1 and 2, the Central Idaho Conference, where St. Mary's was the team to beat last year. They came to state as the number 3 seed overall. They lost to Nampa Christian right away, battled back before having to face Malad in a loser-out contest where they ultimately fell. St. Mary's lost quite a bit to graduation, which I think could open the door possibly for Kellogg to maybe assume control of this district. But up north, it's always tough to tell.
It is true. Again, just because we don't see them that much during the season. They play, you know, teams from Washington and things like that. We don't know much until come state tournament time. But I do agree that Kellogg did have a good record last year as well. And I think that they played them tight. So I guess with, you know, graduating so many, I think Kellogg could take it this year.
Yeah, Kellogg has the only returning all-state player. It's senior setter Madison Cheney. You know, yeah, she's really talented. St. Mary's lost 3 seniors to graduation. It was their 3 best athletes. And so they do have some younger players that were kind of complementary pieces last year that will now have to step in and be the alphas, so to speak, which can always be a tough transition, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, again, like experience, like if they had that experience since they were a freshman coming up, kind of like others we talked about that you feel like have been playing for like 10 years, but really, they've just been getting that experience since they were freshmen. So if it's like freshmen or sophomores like that who had the experience, but, they weren't quite at that level yet, but I think this year they could be, then then they'll be battling it out at the state tournament. But I don't know. I haven't seen them play yet. So
yeah. I will say one other team to keep an eye on from the north is Orofino, the Maniacs. They were very young last year, went 7-12, took their lumps, but they went 4-4 in conference play. And I think with another year under their belts, maybe Orofino could take that next step forward as well. And then, of course, we finish up with District 4, the Canyon Conference. This is only 3 teams. It's Declo, it's Wendell, it's the Sun Valley Community School, and really it's been Declo's league for a while now. Declo got to state last year. They were the number 8 seed overall, but the Hornets, I think, are going to be pretty talented again this year.
Yeah, I think Declo's pretty much like dominated that conference for a while, haven't they?
Yeah.
What I remember. They always seem to have the upper hand in volleyball. I'm not sure how the other sports go for them, but I know
similar. Yeah, basketball, they're always at state. And
okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't see that changing, but
they bring back Bryn Silcock, who was a great setter. They bring back the Nebaker girls. Rachel is a senior. Jacoby is a junior, and they both are interchangeable. They can play in the middle or on the outside. Lily Mallory is back as well. So, yeah, I think Declo is primed for a repeat season of success over there in District 4. Okay, let's talk 1A D1. We're getting closer. We're getting closer to the end here. 1A D1. Last year, Troy was your state champions. Coach Deborah Blazard has taken Troy, this really small town up in North Idaho, and transformed it into this volleyball mecca. I think it'll continue again this year.
I agree, and we saw those athletes play club together too. So again, it comes back to they're getting those reps at a faster pace, higher level, year round kind of deal, and that was their team. It was those Troy players.
Yeah, 3 returning All-State players for Troy this year. Jolie Eklund in the middle, Derica Morgan on the outside, Olivia Tyler, the setter. All 3 of them are seniors, but you mentioned they all play together so much throughout the season and even into the off season. They're just a well-oiled machine. It's really fun to watch them compete. Last year, Troy as a team on the season went 22-1. So they almost became Idaho's second undefeated champion along with Kimberly, but they did stumble one time.
Okay,
yep, one time. And I'm trying to think of who it was they fell against. Oh, you know who they lost to? You'll love this. It's a team we're going to talk about still. Horseshoe Bend.
Oh. Yeah, I can see that. Well, both programs, as far as what I've seen, they do a good job. Again, consistent, disciplined volleyball. All 6 of them on the court. Have a lot of experience. They play well. I can see that.
Yep. We'll talk about Horseshoe Bend when we get to our 1AD too. Kind of lost in how dominant Troy was that their league, the White Pine League District 2, had a lot of good teams. Potlatch was 16-6.
Okay.
7. Kamei was 12-11. They all bring back really good players. Lainey Landmark is back for Kamei, Evelyn Grocki for Logos.
Okay.
So second place, good luck. I don't know. Put them in a hat and shake it up.
That's true. I'm not sure either. I guess we'll see more as the season goes on, but it sounds like there's a lot returning from every team. So,
yep, for sure. So we will move through this quickly because I see you're being directed off camera. You probably got to run. Okay. Let's talk about District 3. Rimrock won that district last year, 15-7. Liberty Charter was also 15-7. This isn't a humongous 11-team district, so it's really hard to predict how things will shake out there. I think Idaho City could be sneaky. They've got Diana Castera, Michaela Barber, Kaya Brown all back. Liberty Charter returns, Aspen Davis and Addie Roscom. Rimrock lost a lot to graduation, but they've got Rylan Burbank and Taylor Gasper back as well. Greenleaf Friends is always in the mix. This to me is a league where you've got like 5 or 6 really good teams and then 5 or 6 that are struggling. And then there's kind of a big divide in this humongous league.
Yeah. And I think it kind of gets that way with everyone that's like over 10 teams or even at 10 teams. There is a big divide between the top 5 and the lower 5, I feel like. Top 5, they're all fighting for their spot, but the bottom 5 aren't going to get up there into the top 5. They're just kind of battling it out from each other, trying to get better. But
yep, for sure. Facing Troy in the championship last year, it was Genesee, but the third place team was Murtaugh from District 4. The Red Devils lost some good players to graduation, but they also do bring back the Stangers. They have Ashley Stanger. She was the conference player of the year. Addie Stanger is back as well. And Murtaugh, is that a team that you guys played last year?
It is. Yeah. So we we went to 5 sets with them and we lost in season. I think we play them every year. So we'll see this year. We did play them in the summer tournament as well. They don't look the same, obviously, because of who they lost. But we'll see. Like you said, they have, dominant hitters and the Stingers on the outside. But yeah, they need some other players to step up.
For sure. So Murtaugh got to state last year, as did Oakley. Oakley lost almost everybody to graduation. It's going to be really hard for Oakley. I think a team that could break through is actually Lighthouse Christian. They bring back Ella DeYoung, senior hitter. Kinsey McCoy is a good sophomore who started as a freshman last year. Carrie also brings back junior setter Paige Black also. So that's kind of how I see District 4 shaking out. Lighthouse or maybe Carrie joining Murtaugh as the second team at state.
Okay. Oh, wait. So are Murtaugh and Oakley in the same?
Yes.
Okay.
Same conference. Yes.
More than battling last year. We played Oakley. But yeah, they look completely different.
Yeah. Oakley lost almost everybody. We've got District 1 up north. Genesis Prep and Wallace are kind of the 2 teams that have been battling up there the last couple of years. Wallace won the league last year. They have 2 seniors coming back in Tia Hendrick and Brittany Phillips. And then Bella Anderson, a junior outside hitter, was the conference player of the year for Genesis Prep. So we'll see if those teams flip positions. And then over in East Idaho, it's Grace. Grace always is just so tough. They've got Sydney Smith back, Melody Stratman. What makes Grace so difficult every year, Lynnsie?
I think because they played together since they're littles, and they just keep playing together all the way through high school. It's such a small town too. They take pride in their school. They want to do well for their community, and there's only so many of them. They're not that big there. They have a really dominant basketball program too. But for volleyball, I think it was a little bit more of a shock because of who was in their district. But I know that they have really good athletes out there. They always have.
Definitely. All right. Well, we will wrap up with 1AD2. This is where you see all the best teams. You help coach at Rockland. And we have to start with, I know it's gonna, touch a nerve, but Horseshoe Bend, the team that defeated Rockland last year in the championship. They're so good. They've been the top team at 1AD2 for the past couple of years. They bring back the state player of the year in Annalie Wilson in the middle, Olivia Bauer on the outside, Abby Howerton on the outside, Tori Cheetah, the libero, Aaliyah Meyer, the setter. What makes Horseshoe Bend so good?
I think you kind of just said it. With those all being conference players, I mean, you could see that they have so much experience together, and they just played, again, comes back to consistency. They don't, make the mistakes. They're going to force the other team to make the mistakes. It might not be that dominant kill that Annalie gets every time, but she's not going to make that error. She's going to force the other team to make that error. I think that they're tough mentally. Again, that's with experience. What I saw from them was just very clean, collected volleyball. They weren't chaotic or sporadic. They're very in tune in system a lot, which obviously helps them to win. even in tight, emotional matches. They were able to keep their cool, and they have at least 5 players on the court at all times who are very experienced in playing with each other and knowing each other's tendencies, and that always helps. Their team chemistry was good.
Yeah, Horseshoe Bend with Coach Sharsty Moore do such a phenomenal job, but also lost in the shuffle is in their own conference council. They took 3rd at state last year. They're like, hello, we're good too. They've got Hope Zolman back. She's a senior hitter. Michaela Hart, big, tall, in the middle, 6'1" senior. Pepper Matthews is back as well. Council also very tricky.
Yeah, they are good. I will say that they did lose some, probably their best hitter in Isabel. But as far as that goes, they have a good coach, the same coach who's trying to teach them disciplined volleyball. They just weren't as disciplined as, a Horseshoe Bend or other teams. They didn't play as consistent, and they weren't always, knowing what to do in that moment as far as volleyball goes, court sense.
Yeah, Paula Tucker is the coach at Council. She's been doing it a really long time. Other teams to keep an eye on in District 3 this year, Garden Valley brings back Aubrey Zimmer, Emma Davis, and Lacey Tucker. And then Tri-Valley, was the last non-Horseshoe Bend team to win a championship. Tri-Valley, they've got a junior in Stella Warren to keep an eye out for as well. Let's talk about your conference, District 5 and 6, the Rocky Mountain Conference. Rockland was the second best team in 1A D2 last year. You lose the Wilson twins to graduation, but you bring back Callan Perman, Autumn Farr, and, of course, excellent coaching. So,
oh, thanks. I think, the seniors we lost, they played big roles for us. But, with every team, you have players who can fill that. It's just up to them to take that step. We kind of talked about that for a lot of teams. And I think that Autumn and Callan can do that for us. Our district, I guess it's always tough too because there's a lot of teams too. But Mackey lost a lot too. Water Springs lost a lot too. So I kind of feel like with who's coming in, we just need to, keep preparing, keep working hard. I see that, Grace Lutheran has some good players coming up. Water Springs also has a couple that are good, that are seniors this year. So we'll see. I don't know what, people are saying on the outside, but I know, what our district looks like.
Yeah, just in terms of returning all conference players, Grace Lutheran has the most with Kirsten Kraus, great setter, Molly Hall, outside hitter, Samantha Moretti, also a good athlete for Grace Lutheran. And then the only other returning all-conference player is from Taylor's Crossing, Allie Webb, the senior, and Heather Webb, of course, is the coach there at Taylor's Crossing. Yeah. So a lot of unknowns in your conference this year.
That's true. Yeah, Kirsten will play well for them. Hallie will play well for her team. But as far as like other pieces, trying to put it all together, we'll see.
Yes, easier said than done for sure. District 4 is always really tough. Richfield has been kind of the premier team. Dietrich has been right there with them. They bring back the Sawtooth Conference Offensive Player of the Year in Fallon O'Barr and the Conference Defensive Player of the Year in Casey Hendren. They have Shelby Jones, Callie Hendren, JC Telford, all back for Richfield. For Dietrich, they bring back 3 seniors, Ellie Hoskison, Sage Hubert, and Jessica Power. To me, it's Dietrich and Richfield on this collision course in District 4.
I agree. And I think that's how it was last year. I think that's how it is for that district, actually. I didn't really know much about that district until last year, but I can tell you that, yeah, both of those teams had, the pieces to do it. Richfield has more offensive power, I will say, than Dietrich does. And I think that's what's going to help them stay ahead, but we'll see.
Definitely. One more player to keep an eye on in that conference, Ellie Whitmarsh at Hagerman. She's a senior. Christy Whitmarsh, the coach there for Hagerman, does a fantastic job. And then up north in Idaho, District 1, it's always Clark Fork. It seems like the Wampus Cats. They bring back Lily Reuter and Eloise Shelton, a pair of seniors that are good multi-sport athletes. Mullen is probably the biggest challenger. They've got Jasmine Nelson, who's a senior. She's been playing since her freshman year. But to me, it really is Clark Fork out of District 1.
Yeah, I agree there. I mean, again, it's hard for me to talk about the up north teams until like I actually look at their games because I don't see them much. So, but I agree with you from what I saw at state. So
yeah, definitely. And then in District 2, Deary always has a strong program year in, year out. They bring back senior setter Kennedy Kirk, who could contend for all state honors. Kendrick has Haley Taylor back. It's going to be tough between those two teams and really some unknowns beyond that. But yeah, that is volleyball, Lynnsie, from 5A all the way to 1A D2. I took up a lot of your time. I apologize that we ran along. Thank you so much for doing this, though.
You're good. Thanks. It was fun. Yeah, I mean, we got some exciting things coming up. This is the first week of volleyball. Lots of teams have their first game tomorrow, actually. So get ready for that.
Yes, and the Peg Peterson tournament is this weekend in Pocatello. CUNA's hosting a season opening tournament as well. So, yeah, stay tuned for Keeping Up with the Kill every week. Lynnssie's going to kind of tell us what's going on in the volleyball scene. And thanks for tuning into this volleyball preview special, everybody. Let's get to it. For Lynnsie, I'm Brandon, and we'll see you later on IdahoSports.com.